Gary.
Hello.
100E, turbo in the way.
Belt's coming off.
Just send it. Cheating on McDonald's this evening. The locking nut is missing. Well, it's not even registering. Look. A bit of a ticking sound. Brake fluid leak. Loose. Both loose. They were all pretty loose. This car was put together by an idiot. Doing this job in completely the wrong order. Oh dear. Actually see some damage come loose. Pie and mash. Not good. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes, this is my beautiful girlfriend Kat, and Kat has just picked me up from work in Winston, the plastic Fiesta, because as you'll know, if you've been watching my videos recently, Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort, is out of action. This evening I'm heading over to see Gary, who is my good friend Rob's dad, and like Rob, Gary owns a 100E. Recently, Gary grabbed a cylinder head from me, which was on the scrap 2-litre Zetec blacktop engine that Tony Hopcroft gave to me last year, so massive thanks again to you, mate, if you're watching. Gary has bolted the blacktop cylinder head to the ST170 bottom end that's in his 100E, and I think he's got the cam belt hooked up and stuff. Most of Gary's experience in the past with cars has been with V8s, so because I sort of know my way around a Zetec at this point, he's asked me to come over and just basically check over everything in terms of the cam belt and stuff. He knows I'm not an expert, but hopefully between the two of us we can make sure that everything's all right before he tries to fire the engine up again. So me and Kat are going to make our way to Gary's workshop and we'll catch up with you when we get there. All right, so we've made it to Gary's workshop where we joined Gary.
Hello.
And his beautiful 100E. Now, as I said on the way down, he's now got the blacktop cylinder head bolted to the ST170 bottom end. Now, with this being a turbo setup, he's got it set up with a decomp plate. And what that meant was essentially the cam belt was basically too short. What he's done so that he can actually get the tension is where this tensioner would normally be leaning in this hole, he's actually made another hole down here. And he did that following advice from the guy that runs the YouTube channel called Ignition Advantages. Shout out to you if you're watching, mate. Now, it all does seem like it's all, you know, tensioned up okay. This seems a little bit too loose, but, you know, it's all in time and it's all put together. But one thing that Gary didn't do that I like to do nowadays is crack off the cam pulley bolts and then set the tension. So basically, I think what I'm going to do is whip the plugs out and get the engine in time using the timing tools, and then we'll crack the cams off and basically just reset the tension and screw it all back together. Also, seeing as we're going to be cracking these cam pulley bolts off, I'm going to Loctite them as well. Got to get the bolt out of the block so that we can put the timing tool in there. Bit awkward when you've got a turbo there in the way. Let's get the timing tool in. Yeah, they're slightly off. They're not as accurate as they can be, but they will be. When you loosen these and let it all move freely, they'll be perfect. Yep. And you don't want to crack these off when you've got this tool on there anyway. So what I'm going to do now is crack off the cam bolt, and what I do is I sort of lean it against here.
So it can't.
Yeah, so it can't move. This one will be fine. I'm so glad you managed to do that. That's why they say replace these. I don't know why I can't use a normal hex bolt, man. And this, like that. That's it.
Just the other side of the turbo.
Find the hole first. Top end's in time, bottom end's in time. Now we'll slacken the tension off. Alright, so Gary's spare cam bolt is attached to this cam, so. Sweet. Everyone always has a go at me in the comments for putting too much Loctite on. Alright, so we'll leave them loose, tension this up. Now, I'm not focusing too much on getting the arrow in the window as you normally would, because obviously this has all been adjusted. Pretty sure 45 degrees either way, so 180 degrees in total is acceptable tension. So what we'll do, we'll nip up these because the timing tool's still in. I'm not going to torque these. It's alright to nip them up though. We will remove the timing tools, turn it over a good few times and then check it.
Belt's coming off.
Yeah,
Oh, so it is.
too far over that way, it's too far over this way.
I've heard people say you've got too much tension in the belt.
Okay. Yeah, because if that's walking off when we're doing it by hand, it will definitely come off when you run it. And then we'll turn our engine over and see if it walks off again.
Walking the other way.
Yeah, that's all right. It might find its,
Yeah, I was going to say it
might find its sort of position. No, it's coming again.
It's coming off, right?
Take a bit more tension off. It seems like it's not walking off now, so we're going to say that you've got the tension right, yeah? Now what I do then, I get it back to in time, put the bar in, and then put the pin in, and then I'll take the bar back out. When that's lined up, this don't move at all, and then you know that it's in time.
Yeah, so we've had the tension in every possible position.
Yeah.
And the only place it's working is where it is now.
Yeah. And it's not that loose, you know what I mean?
No.
It's not going to fall off.
No.
Can't give you any warranty though.
No guarantees on that.
The Marcus Hayes guarantee.
That'd be alright. Just send it. Yeah, if any of you guys could confirm or deny whether too much tension on the cam belt can cause it to walk off the pulleys, that'd be great. You know, it's all in time. It seems like there's quite a bit of tension on the belt, like 45 degrees each way. The belt's not walking off now. So what I'm going to do now is put these mole grips on these cams again and torque up. Got a proper Ford Focus Haynes manual down here, and the cams are apparently 60 Newton meters.
One of them days.
It's alright, I haven't hit the paint yet.
Yeah, I love it.
You don't want them to come loose, but
No.
with them being torqued, you don't want to over-tighten them either.
Yeah.
That's why I always torque them.
Otherwise we'll have to...
You won't be able to get it off.
like we had to before.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's why it wouldn't come off. Perhaps it was over.
Yeah, someone,
tightened.
you know.
Could be
I'm sure
right.
proper mechanics don't torque everything like that. They just torque head bolts. I've got a long history, which is history now, of over tightening things. So.
It's like these. I just did them up.
Gary spec.
Yeah.
Right, so we think we've got the cam belt all hooked up as it should be now. But Gary was saying that he hasn't been able to get a spark since fitting this cylinder head. He did have to change the plug on the wiring for the cam sensor because this engine used to have an ST170 head, and I didn't know this until Gary told me, but the ST170 cam sensor is different than the blacktop one, so he's changed the plug round. That's the ST sensor. Basically, ever since this head has gone in this engine, he hasn't been able to get a spark. So he's plugged the core pack in, got a plug in the end of one of the leads, and yeah, we'll just see. Put this back in. Yeah, because otherwise you'll have oil everywhere. I see what you mean. Got like 16th of a turn at a time, isn't it? It literally moves this much.
Yeah. And when I turn the red key on, I think you'll see that spark plug
Yeah.
spark. You ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now.
It's not in gear, is it?
No. Back wheels off the floor anyway. Now, I'm going to crank it over.
Alright, so it seems like the core pack's working, I'm guessing, because you do get that initial spark when you first turn the key on. I'm not sure whether the cam sensor is what tells the ME221 when to fire the spark plugs. I know in Maude's setup, which is a carb setup, it only has the crank sensor and that controls everything. So I kind of assumed that the crank sensor tells the ME221 when to fire the spark plugs. But I think what I'm going to do is find time to come back down here with my laptop and my wire, and we'll see if I can see anything in the software that's amiss. I know that with the software you can, you know, turn the engine over and it will tell you whether the sensors are working at least. So yeah, it's something to go on. But I'm guessing that the core pack is working. You know, all you've done is change the cylinder head, and the fact that that is a different cam sensor, you know, I'm leaning towards thinking it might be something to do with that, but we'll see. All right, Gary, I'll be back soon with my laptop and we'll get some spark from this thing. Cheating on McDonald's this evening. Zinger stacker. All right, we're going to wolf this chicken down and then make our way home. I'm going to be going round the garage in a couple of days, so I'm going to continue this video then. See you in a sec. Hello, right, so a couple of days have passed since the last clip, and since then I've been on the phone to my friends at Motorsport Electronics, and I was asking them for their advice about exactly what's going on with Gary's 100E. They confirmed that it is indeed the crank sensor that tells the coils to fire, And basically I'm going to go back down to Gary's workshop in the next few days, hopefully, with my laptop, and I'm going to see if I can figure out exactly what's going on. Today, I've been finishing up, tidying up both of my garages. I know it still looks like a bit of a mess, but all these boxes here are actually empty. I'm only keeping them because I've got a load of parts on eBay, so I'll be using them to send the parts to people. But yeah, all my Mk1 spares are now all in boxes, which are labelled, and I've got a lot more shelf space available for if and when I need it. And into my other garage, it does look like a mess, but all these parts on the floor here are spares that I don't need, that I'm going to be selling. Some are provisionally sold, some are already sold, and I've got a load on eBay as well. This sub I'm actually giving away, but I've found someone to take that as well. And yeah, all the bits that I'm keeping are now in boxes, and it's taking up a lot less space on the shelves. And I've got me tyres stacked in the corner out the way rather than them being in front of the door. So yeah, the way it's going, all the spares that I have got to sell should pay for Maude's diff rebuild and for her new prop shaft, so happy days. Before I go today, I do intend to remove Maude's diff so that I can take it down to the diff man, and before I remove it, I'm actually going to have a measure up to see what the ideal length would be for her new prop shaft, because the RS spec one that's in the car at the moment is slightly too short. It pokes out the gearbox a little bit more than ideal, because when I fitted the Z-Tech in this car, basically the gearbox moved back about 1 inch compared to how it was when I had the Type 9 bolted up to the crossflow that used to be in it. But before I get dirty removing Maude's diff, I want to have a quick look at a couple of things on Esther. 5 minutes down the road from the dyno, the car seemed to not idle properly, but I have found something that might be causing that issue. So because this car is running individual throttle bodies, much like when you've got twin carbs, part of the mechanism here is actually to adjust the balance of the sets of throttle bodies. So you've got this threaded stud here that's got an Allen key hole in it, and basically by adjusting that, it opens up these two or closes them to adjust the balance between the two sets of throttle bodies. Now what should be on there is a locking nut which will stop the balance adjusting itself from vibration, and the locking nut is missing. Now this is a good sign, because it might mean that, you know, shortly after I left the dyno, the throttle bodies have gone out of balance, which could cause the weird idle problem that I seem to get. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have been unbalanced on the dyno. I've actually experienced in the past how Chris can hear when your carbs or throttle bodies aren't balanced by ear, but I'm actually going to use my synchronization tool because I haven't got an ear like Chris has. Now my synchronization tool is very primitive. You basically got this bit here that you stick in the trumpet, and then you've got this gauge, if you like, and in there's a plastic thing that basically bounces up and down according to how much the throttle body is sucking in air. So yeah, basically I'm gonna test this one and this one because they're obviously easier to get to than these two, and hopefully they're not balanced, and then that just means that I need to adjust that threaded thing until they are balanced and then put the locking nut back on. And I've actually got some of those locking nuts in my garage anyway, which were found when I was having a clear up. Now before I screw this on, I'm just gonna see if they are out of balance, because I'm pretty sure that when I'm trying to screw this on, it's gonna turn that stud a bit. Alright, so number 4 is bouncing just under 2, about 1 3/4. And number 1, well, it's not even registering. Look. Wow. So when you rev it, they move this way. So we need this one, this side, which is attached to these two throttle bodies, to turn more that way. So we need to thread this in like that. So now it's at 2 3/4. Yeah, gone a little bit too far. I've got to go back the other way a bit now. Just under 1 3/4. And just under 1 3/4. So that's bang on. I'm going to try and thread this on without disturbing that, but I will double check it. If I put the Allen key through there like that, and then put the Allen key in the threaded stud, and hold it still while I do the nut up, should be onto a winner. 7mm spanner. Just about bouncing up to 2.5. This one's about the same. Sweet. Now it's worth noting with this synchronizer that basically this is, you know, adjustable here to open and close the amount of air that's able to get in. Basically you have it nice and closed so that it's still able to actually register on the gauge even at idle. Essentially you just got to make sure that this doesn't adjust between you testing one and then the other. Really happy that that was an easy fix, and I'm pretty sure that means that next time I get her out on the road she's going to drive a lot better than she did on the way back from the dyno. Now you may have just noticed when it was running a bit of a ticking sound, and Chris was basically saying that that's probably, you know, one of the valve clearances isn't correct. And I think on these, they're not hydraulic, so they don't adjust themselves, and they're not shimmed. You have to actually change the actual bucket itself. So at some point I'm going to need to check the valve clearances, which I've never done on a Z-Tech or an ST170 engine, so I'm going to have to do a bit of research. But yeah, I won't be worrying about the valve clearances today. I mentioned in the last video that she's got a bit of a brake fluid leak. There's basically a trace of brake fluid on the pedal box. Now I know a lot of people have problems with these plastic reservoirs leaking, but you know, when I feel around here, there doesn't seem to be any traces of brake fluid coming from these. I felt, you know, a trace of brake fluid on the pedal box. It is only a trace, but when I was around here with my good friend Rob, he actually noticed that you can see moisture there and also on the clutch master cylinder. I'm hoping that the seals inside haven't gone, and I'm just hoping that, you know, maybe one or two of these fittings for the brake pipes are loose. So I'm going to get these spanners out and check those and see if this can also be a quick fix. All right, so the fitting at the back of these master cylinders, that's the one that goes from the master cylinder to the brake circuit. On this master cylinder here, which is either for the front or rear brakes, I can't remember, and on this cylinder here, which is for the clutch, were definitely both loose. And, you know, as I say, Rob noticed that the trace of fluid was around these two. So hopefully that's another easy fix for today. This one on this master cylinder was nice and tight, and yeah, the three front ones which go to the reservoirs in the engine bay, they were all nice and tight as well. Now I'm pretty sure that means I now need to re-bleed the brakes. They did seem to work fine anyway, so there's not loads of air in the system, but yeah, at some point I will need to re-bleed the brakes, and I wanted to do that once the car was on the road anyway. Yeah, while I'm here, I think I'll double check these nuts as well. Yeah, so they were all pretty loose as well. This car was clearly put together by an idiot. In fact, the other nut on the clutch one, I can't actually get to. I need to get myself a really short, stumpy 13mm spanner. Now, obviously, the main issue that I need to deal with on Esther is her sump gasket leak. But yeah, to be honest, she didn't actually lose that much oil when I drove to the dyno, and, you know, she was on the dyno revving her nuts off. And it's still, you know, just below max on the dipstick. So the leak isn't that bad. I don't know if the bodge with sealer I've done has slowed it down a bit. I think it has, to be honest, but how long that's going to last, I don't know. According to the dipstick, it doesn't actually lose that much oil. So in theory, I could still, you know, drive her around as she is. Especially now that I've sorted out the idle issue and potentially sorted out the brake fluid issue. Now there is actually a South London Retro Power Crew meet tomorrow, which I'll definitely be going to, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be taking Esther. I'll make my mind up tomorrow. Yesterday when I was around here, I actually removed the Revolution alloys from the front, and I was going to take them to the tyre shop to get them balanced, because, you know, there's a bit of vibration on the steering wheel I noticed when we went to the dyno. But the tyres are, you know, borderline. You know, they're legal, obviously, they got through an MOT. So if I am going to take Esther to the meet tomorrow, I'm going to have to use the rear wheels that are currently fitted to Maude, but as I am planning to remove her diff today before I leave the garage, there's a possibility that I might go to the meet with Esther tomorrow. But yeah, for now, I'm going to leave Esther alone. Before I let the axle hang, I'm going to measure how much the prop is poking out. 50mm. Speed this up a bit. I'm actually doing this job in completely the wrong order. Oh dear. That's the tabs on the clutch plates that lock onto the casing. Alright, so the diff is now removed from Maude's axle. Those of you that have been watching my videos a while will know that this is fitted with a Tranex plated LSD, and those tabs that I found in the actual casing are these tabs here, and basically when the diff senses an increase in torque or a reduction in torque, because it is a two-way diff, the clutch pack, they separate from the middle, so they clamp together, and then it means that both wheels are locked together, so they both spin at the same speed, and that's how an LSD works. Well, that's how I understand it anyway. But yeah, I'm going to give this a quick blast with some brake cleaner, and then I'm going to wrap it up just to stop any excess dirt getting in there, and that'll be getting sent to the diff man. Obviously he'll be fully dismantling it anyway. I'm guessing it's going to need a pinion bearing. The pinion seal, it seems to be out. I'm pretty sure that should be, you know, against the casing, which probably means that nut has come loose. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the prop shaft being worn is basically putting excess, you know, pressure on this flange, you know, maybe a bit of vibration, and that's what's killing the bearing and the seals. I'm just going to buy a fresh set of clutch plates, and yeah, whatever bearings or seals it needs, the diff man will put in, and then when I get it back, I'm probably going to fit it to Esther, because I want to see how the RX-8 gearbox is with a 4:1 ratio diff. Alright, with the diff cleaned out a bit, actually see some damage to the LSD casing, probably by those little tabs, and there's a bit on here as well, where they would normally obviously poke through. Yeah, I'm hoping that that's okay and that's not an issue, because I know the casing for these is pretty expensive, with it being a billet piece. The crown wheel seems okay, and from what I can see of the pinion, that seems okay as well. Yeah, we'll just have to see what it needs, and whatever it needs, it'll be getting. I've removed Maude's prop shaft. This is a motorsport spec single piece prop shaft, and just been looking at the UJs. Now, I can't see any play or feel any play when I'm trying to wiggle it by hand, but I did notice that on this front one, which goes into the gearbox, both, you know, joints are very loose, you know, nice and loose. Whereas on the diff end, this way is nice and loose, but this one is a little bit more stiff. It's not much, but, you know, maybe that is what's causing the issue, you know, putting a bit too much strain on the diff flange. There is a little grease nipple on this, but I've never, you know, added grease to it ever since I've had it. And yeah, I've had this for years. It was fitted to Esther years ago when she was on the road, when she was in Primer. She was only on the road for about 6 months. And then it's been fitted to Maude for years and years now. So yeah, I was going to measure the prop shaft and then just go down to the prop shaft company and just tell them how long the prop was and how long it's actually sticking out of the gearbox, which is about 50 mil, and then get them to work out how long the prop should be. What I'm actually going to do is take this prop shaft with me to the prop shaft place, and this way they can actually tell me what, if anything, was wrong with it. Now, because the car is going to be staying jacked up, there doesn't appear to be any oil dripping out of the gearbox, but I've stuck a couple of gloves around the end of it just to prevent any dust getting in or any oil dribbling out. Now I need to pack up around here, bag up all the bolts and nuts that I've removed from the car today so that I don't lose them. And then I need to figure out whether I'm going to bother fitting these bandits to the front of Esther to take her to the meet tomorrow, or if we're just going to go in Winston. Back at home, and I've washed all the diff oil out of my hair, and my beautiful girlfriend has just rustled us up some pie and mash. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that I've now got my dad's Mk1 Escort back from Rob, and I'm really happy with the paintwork. I'll show you that in a video next week. I've actually got a few days off next week, and I'm going to be spending one of those days on the Mk3 just fitting the rear bumper, and I've got some interior bits to fit, and then I can MOT her and get her on the road. Also hoping to crack on with Maude's paint job next week, but we are forecast for rain, so it's all weather permitting. As I mentioned earlier, tomorrow we're hoping to go to a South London Retro Power meet, which again is weather permitting. So find out in the next video if we actually made it to the meet and whether I bothered taking Esther. For now though, I'm going to end this video here and munch my grub. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, click subscribe to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media and my website. I'll also leave my email address down there for anyone who wants to contact me. Massive thanks to everyone who jumped on the pre-order for the new Marcus Hayes clothing. I'm really grateful that so many of you are willing to put your hand in your pocket to support my channel. But other than that, until next time, from me and Kat, thanks for watching. Oh my God.